All right, good morning. I'm going to do a new video here on as soon as I get my dodgy computer to start acting right. Okay, all right. So I don't actively watch baseball. I actively watch baseball highlights. I love watching baseball, especially pitching today in HD. It is just insane to watch a great pitcher these days. You can see the seams, you can see the ball moving, and I love to watch good hitting also. And this guy, Josh Donaldson, he really fascinates me. I actually found a short documentary on him, and they actually showed his old batting swing and now his new batting swing, and he essentially completely rebuilt his swing into this massive, powerful, beautiful thing. And I'll let it play in the background here, and you can kind of watch it for yourself. Um, it's a noticeable, shocking difference. He went from being a very below average hitter to being a incredibly above average hitter. And he essentially did it without a batting coach, which I think is the most interesting thing. He kind of threw out all the batting coaches and went off on his own. And I thought, wow, that sounds familiar. Um, and now people are copying him. And I couldn't help but notice the similarities behind the spin and throw and what he specifically talks about in his batting video here. And I'm just going to let it play, and then I'm going to kind of stop as we go. And then I have Paige Pierce over here in slow motion. And I'm just going to show you that it's funny. He's talking exactly the same things that I have been actively trying to teach. So um, that being said, that makes it clear. Obviously, I haven't invented anything. I just kind of brought it all together. And at the same time, I will say that I've abandoned so many things from before in the same way that Josh did here. And the athletic fundamentals are the same. Anyway, as we go through it, I'll comment on it. Here we go.
What are some of your keys in your swing, and then we'll come out to the tee and totally lock in on it. Run that back from the top again. Can we get that back all the way? Here we go. So what's the initial mindset? You're set? Are you thinking like weight on the inside of the back knee? Are you worried about the load, the leg kick, where you're going with it?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on.
I know.
And obviously we had talked about it, but I think it all starts first before you even get into the load. It's having your natural flow, your natural rhythm, kind of just rock. And I'm sitting. I got my weight in my back heel right there,
So
which is going to allow me to stay balanced into my back hip. Okay.
So you're worrying about hips. You're not worrying about the.
Okay, so that's the first point. Is you can see he's achieving this position. Let's back it up a little bit. Okay, here we go. Does that look familiar? Okay. This is exactly what I have been trying to get people to start. When my students show up, I say I want to see the swing into the tuck, because I believe that that's exactly what I'm kind of teaching, is this one leg. We load up on one leg. I like actually, I always thought it and I've said it in my videos, as being a reverse pitcher's kick. And he's lifting his knee straight up, which I really like too. And some of my students, when they send me a swing into the tuck drill when we're starting lessons, will do this knee kick up into this hip which is actually, I never really thought about that might be a way to do that. But you can see it's exactly the same position. There's her spine is tilted back over the top of her foot, even a little bit behind her. Center of gravity is right about here in the center of her chest. So she's not turning, she's stepping and coiling up on this back hip, which is exactly what Josh just said. He's not worried about the foot. He's worried about getting loaded up on his rear hip.
Kind of just rocking. I'm sitting. I got my weight in my back heel right there,
So
which is going to allow me to stay balanced into my back hip. Okay.
So you're
Okay,
worrying
so
about
the verbiage he used was to stay balanced into his back hip. So let's watch the next thing, which is what I've been teaching as kind of reaching for the ground, right? He's staying back here, not making any effort to actually throw forward with his upper body. He's striding forward and at the same time unloading this entire trailing side around this plant foot. And let's listen to him talk about his plant foot.
hips. You're not worrying about the inside of the back knee. You got the weight on the.
No, because once I get into my hip right here, my weight's going to be able to transfer from my back knee.
Where did that come from? I've never heard a coach played 16 years in the big leagues. Never heard a hitting coach one time to me say, get the weight into your hip.
Well, I mean, there's been a couple people who I've talked to. One of, my old agent, Hunter Bledsoe.
Again, I want to come back to this is the revolutionary idea behind spin and throw, is that I am a firm believer that all you're doing is loading the trailing side and then throwing the trailing side around the lead side. So it's two coils. It's a coil into the trailing side and then a throw of that tension around the pivot point, which is the front leg. So that's exactly what Josh is talking about here. Let's watch page. It's the same. Look at this position. It's the same position. Now this is a very extreme throwing as hard as she can, and I don't think her form looks like this. Her form has actually improved quite a bit in the last 4 years. This is just the only one I could find as far as a slow motion that's a good side on view that I could see these similar positions. And as we move forward, you'll see his emphasis is on loading up his trailing side and exploding this side of his body around his lead side. And that's why, and just listen to what he says. Let's just keep going.
He liked to talk hitting and kind of understood the kinetic chain. I had a couple other people who kind of got me into that. But so that's where I want to be able to control, and you kind of see if you can run it back. Whenever you start the leg kick, it's not a quick leg kick. It's kind of like a gradual. I'm gradually coming up and then getting to the top point of my leg kick, and then what's kind of a little bit different, what people don't understand is I never want to think about my hands going towards the baseball. I never want to.
Craziest thing. When you said that night,
Yeah,
that's all I thought about was hands. I can take all this out of it, but as long as these work, I'll get to it.
Yeah, so the only time I ever think.
Okay, so this was another one that just left me with my mouth wide open, because he basically goes into the fact that he's trying to make his upper body completely passive, which is, again, what I've been trying to teach, which is the upper body is actually not a passive thing. And the more that you use your arms and your hands to quote unquote snap the disc, the more counterproductive it actually is. That's what he just said. That in batting, they're teaching to hit the ball with your hands, flip at it with your hands. And what Josh is talking about is the opposite. He's trying to create this big, incredibly powerful machine that starts from his back butt cheek and throws forward, and his arms become very passive. His chest is going along for the ride, as they say.
About hands is if it's an emergency swing that I'm just kind of trying to foul a ball off on.
So basically,
and that's what you were working with.
I love it.
And you still hit homers. I don't get it. That's how strong you were. So if we can get back a little bit further.
So I did a recent video talking about how I was showing the big wide arc of Page Pierce and how I'd given a lesson, and the student was very good, but they were very obsessed with like snapping the disc with their wrist and their hands, and it actually, you could see it in their throw. The entire body motion would just stop momentarily, and you'd have to create this snapping motion. But he's speaking specifically to the fact that the more you're actively using your hands to hold the bat and to throw the barrel, the more it actually slows you down. And he'll go into it even more. We'll just listen.
So at this point, when I get to the top part of my leg kick right here, okay, now you see how everything's kind of nice and tight right here. So once I begin to go forward, so if you can run it, I go forward here, boom, that's when I begin to my load, and that's when I start to create my angles and get my stretch, which allows,
So we'll go back and I'll run this forward. Just watch him. Again, he is never, and he's going to go into this and talk about it, he is never on one foot for very long. There's never really a point where he's got both feet on the ground, flat on the ground. He goes to plant one foot, and then the other foot's in rotation immediately, and already the heel is well off the ground. He's keeping his head still. If you watch his helmet relative to the people behind him, he's staying in one place. So the stride forward, reaching for the ground, there's a little bit of a fall forward, but again, he's not pushing. He's stepping forward and getting ready to unload this leg in rotation. Here we go. As soon as that foot hits the ground, and watch the bat, it's actually going this way as he's striding forward, creating this whip snap of his body. So as soon as that foot hits the ground, come on now, it's coming. Not a perfect world I'm in here. I have to work with what I've got. It would be so cool to have your own studio and have these videos, and then
my load, and that's when I start to create my angles and get my stretch, which allows, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, allows a guy my size to be.
sorry, you just have to bear with me. There it is. I call it a coil onto the back hip. He calls it a load onto the back hip. But it's the same thing. The entire weight of the body is essentially on one leg. Okay, here we go. Come on, let's go. Okay, so now the foot is planted, and this side is now rotating. It's not pushing, It's rotating. He's slamming this trailing shoulder, trailing hip, and trailing knee around into this plane as hard as he can. Look how open his body is. Look how far ahead of the bat he is. He's leading the bat, the passive arm, with this rotation that is in front by, well, with the particular bat, it's like 90 degrees in front. This is where the delay comes from. So the bat has dropped in and he has thrown his trailing side. He's actually past what we would call 12 o'clock. He's already into the left field by this point with his right shoulder. So he's like leading with his trailing side. And the bat comes in delay behind it. And he's throwing the bat this way and he's going this way, which is the whole concept of spin and throw. I just did a video, the previous video, where it shows Paige Pierce from behind, and her throw goes out from her chest as she spins to the right. The throw goes out to the left, and it creates a dead straight throw that's 2 feet away from her line, the parallel line. And this is one of the things when I start to see it in my students where they get ahead of their own throw. So they're actually not afraid to be wide open and actually get out in front of the fact that they're going to throw the disc out to the left and they're going to spin to the right for a right-handed player. But you can see this position that Josh is in.
And get my stretch, which allows, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, allows a guy my size to be able to still hit.
Talk about, but you're talking about, so once this is down, because you got minimal movement. I mean, these guys load or load down, you're pretty stacked right here, and then it's just a lay down and everything's coming, and you're thinking of creating bat speed with your shoulders, not your hands.
Yeah, the term that I like to use is effortless bat speed. There's times when it looks like I'm swinging hard.
I don't even know what to say. That's what I've been trying to beat into people's heads, that when it happens, and my students will come back and say to me, it just feels effortless. What I'm doing is effortless, because when you stop using your hands and your arms and you're actually creating the speed from your kick and from your coil, and your upper body becomes kind of a passive engine instead of the driving force, which the pull teaching in disc golf is by definition using your arms and your shoulders to drive the mechanism. Just let that sink in. The entire pull idea means that you're thinking about the disc. I'm trying to teach that you're basically holding on to the disc and doing very little with your hands and arms. And that's what Josh, I believe he is talking about here. It's a very dead arm kind of feel.
But for me to actually to produce that swing, it's not taking a lot of energy from me. So that's what I mean by effortless bat speed. And my bat's flying through the zone at a pretty high rate of speed.
Yeah, and he's generating all his power
from
from
here.
his
I get my coil boom.
loads,
If I can just
so
get
that
it back a
those are the
little
most
bit to the
powerful
top
muscles
part.
in your whole body.
So this is when wherever I get to here and I come this way,
Yeah.
it's kind of more of a rubber band effect. So if most guys, what you were doing with your hands,
Yeah.
if I had a rubber band right here, I'm taking that rubber band and I'm stretching it this much. When maybe you have this much power, but that's all you're using of it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to max out my power,
Waste
stretch
it down.
that. Yeah, I'm just trying to stretch that band and still create the timing of being able to hit the pitch. Because it's easy to do it. It's easy to do it on the tee every day. It's easy.
Show me. Get side angle if you can on him, and show me what you mean where the rubber band. So you're creating.
Yeah, I'm trying to create that tension at the top part of my load, or not at the top part of my load, but when I get to the finish of my load, which is, so if this is the top part of my load right here, once I get to there, now my rubber band is finished. And what's important too, what a lot of hitting coaches out there say, this, that, and another, Jose Bautista had over 50 homers.
Yeah.
Evan and Encarnacion, a lot of homers. Their front foot is open.
Yeah, I agree with that. Clear to hit.
Front foot.
Here we go. The idea of planting your lead foot closed somehow activates your hips. I've heard that. Oh, you can't activate your hips unless your lead foot is closed when you land. Okie dokie. Let's hear what Josh has to say about that.
It's got to be open. If my front foot never opens, my hips can't ever separate from my upper half. So once the foot opens here and my hands get back this way, now in order to hit pitch heights, now it's all about shoulder plane.
Here we go, fellas. All right, we're going on a whole new level.
We're getting deep.
We're going to shoulder planes. If I'm a 10-year-old kid at home, give me something to go out and.
Okay, I'll tell you, if you're 10 years old and your coach says get on top of the ball.
I mean, this is so good. I'm just going to back it up again.
Pitch heights, now it's all about shoulder plane.
Here we go,
Back
fellas.
A little bit more.
Their front foot is open.
Yeah, I agree with that. Clear to hit.
Front foot's got to be open. If my front foot never opens, my hips can't ever separate from my upper half.
Oh, that is just.
So once
that's just gold. That's gold. That's what I've been trying to say. It's like people are saying, "Oh, everybody needs to plant their front foot closed." Why? How does that quote unquote activate your hips? There are some of the pros that have said that in teaching videos, and now I have to unteach it because they said it. But I totally agree with what he's saying. This would be a radical extreme for disc golf. But the idea of if I want to throw this knee forward and this trailing hip, which drives the shoulders, which drives the arms, which drives the hands, I want to throw this forward. How the heck am I going to stand here with this foot like this and do this? That's exactly what he just said. And I have students that come to me and their hips are stuck. In fact, that's probably number 2 on the list of things that I see in players is they reach this.
It's got to be open. If my front foot never opens,
like this,
my hips can't ever separate from my upper half.
Golly, that's just exactly. I didn't know how to say it. That's exactly right. To get a 1 foot throw of the trailing side, you can't do it with this foot shut. It's quite the opposite. This foot, if it's open, you can throw this. You can take in his case, it'd be his right butt cheek and just throw it as hard as he wants to around this pivot foot. But if you close that foot up, it locks everything up.
So once the foot opens here and my hands get back this way, now in order to hit pitch heights, now it's all about shoulder plane.
Here we go, fellas. All right, we're going on a whole new level.
We're getting deep.
The rest of it's kind of more.
But when you're getting back here, when you're coiling that rubber band, your top hand, there's no you're just really loosey-goosey with your hand.
Well, I don't ever, when we're going terms and stuff like that, I'm trying to keep it kind of bland.
Free.
But when I'm right here, I want to feel like my arms are limp. Like I have zero tension. So it's just boom. The time when my arms get engaged with my body is when my scap loads my bat and pulls it back. I don't want to think about my hands loading it, because when my hands load it, now my barrel gets messed up.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Where were you 15 years?
So now if I pull down with my hands, either I'm going to pull down too much this way, my back goes out here, and now the reverse effect of this goes this way, and now I'm underneath balls. That's why coaches say get on top of the ball, because now you're underneath. The whole fact of the matter is, to keep it as simple as possible, I want my bat to be near a 45-degree angle, and I want my bat to split my head whenever I finish my load at this point. Now, once I get to this position here, now you
What
have
do
to
you
deal
think?
with front side mechanics with my
You
elbow
want to be an
here.
MVP in the game? You better lock it in.
Front
This is
arm
deep, isn't it?
rotation, throwing arm rotation.
Go with
You're
it.
getting the real deal right now.
Go with it.
So now it's
The
front
world's
side
getting the real
mechanics.
deal.
Elbow
So
down
now
the
if the
target
pitch,
line, and he doesn't really go into it, but there's this rotation.
now if the pitch is here, where you were taught to do this,
Yep.
Rotates the
It's
elbow
exactly
down.
what
That's
we
actually
okay,
to
not,
do. Get on
let's
top.
think of
doesn't
this
do it as much
logically.
as a disc golfer would have
If
to
I
do it
hit
to
a
keep the nose
ball
down.
like this
As you
right
can
here,
see, his elbow
that ball's
was
going
pointed this
straight down
way,
this
and
way,
now it's pointed this
or I'm
way.
going to clip the bottom side of it and pop
Pop
it
it
straight
up.
up.
Yep.
Done that a lot. You've done that a lot. I don't like to do that. So I learned from what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
So the proper way to hit this pitch, I'm at my load, I'm at my heel strike. That's what I call my finish,
Yeah, I love
my
that.
heel stroke, my heel strike. So now when I'm here, now it's all about getting my elbows in the right position, and then now I'm firing my back shoulder, back hip to this ball right here.
Yeah, firing that back hip to
Now
the ball.
it's a
Back
homer.
hip to the ball.
Now you're thinking when all that stuff's cleared and that pitch is in
Yeah,
the
the
zone,
rest of
you
it,
take into
there's
account
really
your
not anything. There's more batting specific and about hitting balls and stuff like that. But back hip to the ball. That is the throwing the trailing side philosophy.
My heel strike. So now when I'm here,
Complaints,
now it's
what
all
we would
about
call it.
getting my elbows in the right position, and then now I'm firing my back shoulder, back hip to this ball right here.
Back hip to the to the ball.
And now
And that is the knee
it's a
drop.
homer.
Now you're thinking when all that
It's not
stuff's
a
cleared
push. He's
and that
firing
pitch
his
is in the
hip.
zone, you
Try to
take into
fire that hip
account
at
your
the ball and
percentages,
not rotate
counts.
your back
So
foot.
you're up there guessing a lot. Educated guesses.
Somewhat. It just
I'm going to
depends.
stop there. I mean, I just love this video, and it is funny how he basically had to go away from what was being taught to develop his mechanics. And his mechanics do resemble a lot of other people now, but he wanted to fix his mechanics, and to do it, he had to basically ignore the teachers. Isn't that interesting? And now he has fixed his mechanics, and his mechanics are amazing. And he is fun to watch when he starts hitting the ball good. Maybe you could go back and watch this and watch the elements again, and that's why you hear me saying things like, um, people say, "Hey, you can't activate your hips unless your foot's landing too open." I have people tell me that all the time. It's like I don't know what that means. Activate your hips. What does that mean? Josh is thinking about each hip individually instead of, I guess, popping your girdle open, your pelvic girdle across both hips. But as he kind of demonstrated, that actually ends up in that locked position. And people think, oh, I'm going to activate my hips with my foot shut because somebody said that in a video. I got to activate my hips more. I'm landing too open. How's that going to activate your hips? If the idea, which I teach, is to throw this hip at the ball as hard as you can? It doesn't. In fact, it's the opposite, and that's why this is such a great video. I'm going to stop there. It's almost 30 minutes. It's the longest video I've done. But I really like this, and I'm sorry I had so many technical difficulties. I'm a one-take guy. You get it raw, just the way I make it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please pay attention to the batter swings. Paul Macbeth said that. And I think if you were to look at, once again, go back and look at Paige Pierce and see that ultimately she ends up in the same position it's the same. And this is also the swing into the tuck drill. So the swing into the tuck drill, people say, how do I put that into my real throw? I go, it is your real throw. If you can do swing into the tuck, which is kind of that with both feet kind of mostly on the ground, and then you could go into the high kick like he does, which is, sorry, hold on, this position. Yeah. If she were to pick this knee up, it'd be exactly the same position. This is what I'm teaching. And it is not what other people are teaching. This coil into this back foot, it doesn't require that your back foot is open. You can do it with your back foot open. But as you can see, actually, I like to think your feet should be kind of like you walk. Maybe a little bit more open than that, depending on how old you are and how much flexibility you have in your hip. But this load position, as he calls it, is what I call the coil on, like the coil on one leg. So this position is this position. Well, doggone it. Ha! Messed it up. It's this position. Okay, so this position is this position. This position is this position. It's the same. And this translates into an X step. We'll back up page. Once you understand the X step is just a setup for this position. Yeah, right there. There it was. And then everything becomes throwing the trailing hip at the disc. Maybe is another way of saying it, right? With a right-hander, he calls it, he threw his back hip at the ball. We should be throwing the left hip at the disc out to 10 o'clock. And that's why the whole mantra of spin and throw has been, if you're throwing to the right, you throw out sooner. You do not ever stop spinning faster. We want to throw the trailing side around the lead side at as hard as we can every single time. Well, within control. But we never slow down the spin of the body. We just change the throw out position to counteract the amount of power that we're generating from the lower body because the upper body is passive. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Join my Patreon /spin and throw. Join the Facebook group, Spin and Throw Disc Golf. I give lessons. Contact me, and if you join 1050 rated or Open Pro rated on Patreon, then it comes with online lessons. Thanks again. This is Brad. Catch you later.